The lawyer slid a single sheet of paper across the polished conference table, and in one ordinary sentence, a man's carefully controlled world shattered. It wasn't a prison sentence or a bankruptcy notice. It was something far more devastating. You need a family by Friday, or everything your grandmother built will be donated exactly as her final will instructs. The words echoed through the silent room while every breath felt heavier than the last. The inheritance wasn't just money. It was the community hospital that had saved thousands of lives, a foundation that cared for abandoned children, and a lifetime of compassion built by the only person who had ever truly loved him. Then, as if fate had decided cruelty wasn't enough, he lifted his eyes toward the doorway and saw the one woman in the city who despised him more than anyone else. If stories about forgiveness, hope, kindness, and second chances inspire you, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone you love, and subscribe to our channel so together we can continue bringing meaningful stories that remind us how powerful compassion can be. Graham Mercer had spent 15 years convincing the world that success was stronger than emotion. As the founder of one of the country's largest architectural firms, he designed hospitals, schools, and public buildings that carried his signature across the skyline, yet his own life remained painfully empty. Awards lined his office walls, but family photographs were nowhere to be found. Every relationship had ended because work always came first, and eventually everyone realized they would never outrank another meeting, another deadline, or another project. When his beloved grandmother Eleanor passed away, Graham believed inheriting her estate would be a straightforward legal process. Instead, Eleanor had left behind one final lesson disguised as an impossible condition. Her will explained that the family fortune would only remain under Graham's care if, within 1 week, he demonstrated that he understood the true meaning of family. The legal definition was surprisingly simple. He didn't have to marry. He didn't have to have children. He only had to show that he had built a genuine family based on love, commitment, and responsibility rather than wealth or convenience. If he failed, every dollar would immediately transfer to the charitable organizations Eleanor had already selected. The attorney handling the estate believed the condition was symbolic until another clause revealed Eleanor had anticipated every legal challenge. The requirement was fully enforceable because Graham had voluntarily agreed years earlier, without reading the updated trust documents his grandmother asked him to sign after a holiday dinner. He had trusted her completely. Now that trust demanded something he had spent his entire adult life avoiding. As Graham tried to absorb the impossible situation, another client entered the office carrying a folder of adoption paperwork. Her name was Celeste Rowan, and the moment their eyes met, neither attempted to hide the bitterness that lingered between them. 5 years earlier, Graham's company had purchased the old apartment building where Celeste lived with her younger sister after their parents died. The redevelopment project promised luxury condominiums and increased property values. Although Graham had followed every legal requirement, dozens of families, including Celeste and her sister, were forced to relocate. Her sister's chronic illness worsened after the stressful move, and despite everyone's best efforts, she passed away months later. Celeste never blamed the disease. She blamed the man whose signature appeared on every eviction notice. She had rebuilt her. Every proposal collapsed because Eleanor's legal team investigated every claim thoroughly. Authentic relationships could not be manufactured. Meanwhile, Celeste's adoption application faced unexpected complications. She hoped to adopt 2 siblings, a cheerful 9-year-old boy named Owen and his quiet little sister Hazel, who had spent years moving between foster homes. The adoption agency supported her wholeheartedly, but a sudden financial review questioned whether one income could comfortably provide for both children. When Graham accidentally learned about her situation during another legal meeting, something shifted inside him. For the first time, solving his own crisis seemed less important than helping someone else's. Instead of offering money, which he knew she would reject immediately, Graham contacted community leaders, local businesses, and charitable organizations to create expanded therapy programs at Celeste's Rehabilitation Center. The funding generated additional employment and increased her long-term financial stability without making her feel like a charity case. Celeste discovered weeks later that anonymous supporters had transformed her workplace almost overnight. New therapy equipment arrived. Waiting lists shortened. Families who previously couldn't afford treatment now received care free of charge. She remained suspicious. Eventually, the attorney quietly confirmed who had organized everything. The revelation confused her more than it comforted her. She wanted to continue hating Graham because resentment had become familiar. Yet the man responsible for one of the worst chapters of her life had quietly improved hundreds of other lives without asking for recognition. Friday approached with terrifying speed. Graham still had no family. The attorney reminded him that by noon, the estate would permanently transfer if no evidence of genuine family bonds existed. That same morning, an unexpected crisis unfolded at the rehabilitation center. A burst water pipe flooded several therapy rooms, forcing emergency evacuations while frightened children watched their carefully built recovery spaces disappear beneath muddy water. Without hesitation, Graham arrived wearing work boots instead of expensive shoes. He personally coordinated engineers, construction crews, electricians, and restoration specialists from his own company. Throughout the day, he carried furniture, cleaned debris, comforted anxious children, and worked beside volunteers until every room became safe again. No cameras appeared. No reporters arrived. No speeches were made. Only exhausted people helping one another beneath bright afternoon sunlight. Hazel noticed Graham carefully repairing a wooden toy shelf after workers accidentally damaged it. She quietly sat beside him and began handing him screws one at a time. Owen soon joined them, asking endless questions about buildings and bridges. Graham answered every question patiently, smiling more genuinely than he had in years. Celeste watched from across the room. For the first time, she saw not the executive from newspaper headlines but a lonely man who seemed surprised that children naturally trusted him. The attorney arrived shortly before noon to collect final documents regarding the inheritance. He observed Graham laughing with Owen after accidentally covering himself in sawdust while fixing a bookshelf. Hazel proudly presented Graham with a paper heart she had colored using bright crayons rescued from a dry cabinet. The attorney quietly smiled. He asked Graham whether these children were his family. Graham answered honestly. He admitted they were not. He admitted he still had no legal family. He admitted he deserved to lose everything because he had spent too many years believing success mattered more than people. Then he surprised everyone by signing the paper surrendering the inheritance without protest. He requested only one condition. He asked that Eleanor's hospital and charitable foundation continue exactly as she intended because, finally, he understood why she had written the will. The attorney looked at Graham for a long moment before removing another sealed envelope from the file. Eleanor had prepared one final handwritten letter. She explained that the purpose of the condition had never been to force Graham into creating paperwork. She wanted him to discover that family was recognized not through legal titles but through selfless choices freely made when no reward remained possible. She instructed the attorney that if Graham willingly surrendered the inheritance for the sake of others rather than manipulate the condition for personal gain, then he had fulfilled the true spirit of her request. The attorney folded the letter carefully. The inheritance remained his. Not because he had found a family by Friday. Because he had finally become someone worthy of one. Tears filled Graham's eyes before he even realized he was crying. Celeste stood quietly nearby, holding Hazel's tiny hand. The bitterness she had carried for years suddenly felt unbearably heavy. Forgiveness did not erase the past. It did not bring back her sister. It did not undo painful memories. But forgiveness finally allowed hope to occupy the space where anger had lived for far too long. Over the following months, Graham transformed both his business and his life. Future developments included affordable housing protections, relocation assistance, and community advisory boards ensuring families were never treated like numbers on financial reports again. His company became known not merely for beautiful buildings but for respecting the people who lived inside them. Celeste completed the adoption of Owen and Hazel, surrounded by co-workers who had become an extended family. Graham attended the celebration only after receiving a personal invitation. The children ran toward him as though he had always belonged there. Weekends gradually filled with shared picnics, volunteer events, birthday parties, and community projects. No one forced labels onto their relationships. They simply allowed trust to grow naturally. Years later, visitors entering Eleanor Community Hospital often paused before reading a bronze plaque displayed near the entrance. It did not mention fortunes, legal victories, or successful corporations. Instead, it carried a simple message inspired by Eleanor's final lesson. The strongest foundation is never built from stone. It is built from people who choose one another every single day. Graham often stood quietly before that plaque, remembering the Friday when he believed he had lost everything, only to discover the first real family his heart had ever known. Before we reach the end of this journey, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever forgiven someone who genuinely changed, or has someone given you a second chance that transformed your life? Please leave a meaningful comment and share the lesson this story reminded you of. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Remember that kindness is rarely wasted, forgiveness is often stronger than revenge, and sometimes the family we need is not the one we are born into but the one we build through compassion, honesty, sacrifice, and love. Sometimes the greatest inheritance is never measured in money at all, but in the hearts willing to welcome us home.